The metallic scent of ozone crackled in the air as I navigated the narrow corridor of the Albatross, my pulse thrumming in sync with the steady thump of the ship's failing reactor. I could practically hear the screams of futures unwritten echoing through the walls, a symphony of chaos as I skidded past the open hatch of the engine bay. "Mara, get back. It's unstable." Vex's voice boomed behind me, laced with desperation and something else. Fear. I didn't slow. The weight of the last Astra crystal pressed against my chest like an iron anchor, reminding me that time was not on our side. It had to be me who retrieved it, a decision I was coming to question as the lights flickered ominously above us. The reactor, a pulsing heart of the Albatross, vibrated beneath my fingertips, and for a moment I hesitated at the threshold of the bay. Vex loomed in the dim light, anxiety etched into his furrowed brow. I could tell he was torn. Part of him wanted to pull me back, to shield me from the incoming storm. I hated that he cared. Wasn't I the one who always led us into danger? Just tell me what you found, Vex. We can't shut up and listen. The energy readings are off the charts. If you step in there, you're going to. I didn't need him to finish. A singular, piercing scream cut through the reactor's hum, rising higher than my ragged breath. This was our last opportunity to save the galaxy from collapsing under the weight of the Devourers, an unstoppable swarm that tore through worlds like candy through a child's hands. I swallowed hard, sealing my resolve. I'd ransacked enough ruins and fought enough battles with that insatiable horde to see how they operated. I had to do this. Mara, Vex's voice reverberated against the ship's metal hull, sharp like shrapnel aimed at my heart. You think this is a game? This is reckless. Reckless isn't going back for a second helping when the galaxy's bleeding out. I spat, clutching the war, Nout energy pistol strapped to my thigh. Its reassuring weight reminded me that I could still fight, that I could still salvage something from the wreckage. You don't get it. There's enough power left in that reactor for one full cycle of the Nova engine. If I can just stabilize, then what? You'll blow us to smithereens. Precisely my point. But if I didn't try, we were as good as dead anyway, scavengers in a galaxy that had begun to devour its own. Vex turned, frustration flashing in his amber eyes, and the hurt poured off him like blood from an open wound. I crept past him, through the hatch, the engine bay unfolding into a cacophony of green and orange lights, the reactor's core pulsating like a living thing, angry and wild. The moment I stepped forward, the chamber shuddered. With every tremor, I could sense the ship's discontent reflecting my own. I cursed under my breath, my fingers finding their way to the control panel, flickers of faded purple and amber freezing beneath my thumb. Power readings surged and dipped, the monitors malfunctioning as bursts of energy surged across the terminals. The volatility of it all settled into my gut like a rock. A jagged bolt of electricity surged from the heart of the reactor, silhouetting me in blinding light. I jerked back, instinctively raising my arms to shield myself from the raw energy crackling through the air. Vex's voice echoed through the calm, numbing in its urgency against the chaos. "Mara, we don't have time. Told you to stay in the cockpit." I hollered, scanning the control panel, desperate to siphon power and stabilize the current flow. The crosshairs of the readouts fluctuated wildly. The last remnants of the Astra crystal were responding, but I couldn't tell if it was out of fright or harmony. I pulled back, biting my lip. Memories of how our bond had once been charged with the same energy flooded over me, once before the galaxy spiraled into decay. "Mara, please," he rushed in, his paws thrust out. I felt my heart twinge as he steadied himself beside me, fear and rage threading through the lines of his fur. "It won't blow, Vex. I can control it. I need you to trust me." Our eyes locked, and in that moment, I saw his confidence in me falter. My resolve hardened even as I wished I could ease the tension, twisting his face into sharp lines of anger. "Trust me, or we die. You know that." With a reluctant sigh, He stepped aside, the urgency spilling from him as he gripped a nearby console. "Okay, what do you need?" "Power stabilizers over there." I pointed, releasing a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, relieved to have him at my side despite it all. Together, we worked through the chaos, each second feeling like a lifetime as we raced against an unknown countdown echoing from the monitor. A chill crept down my spine as the reactor pulsed, brighter now, the danger of the combined energies rising like a storm about to break. The galaxy teetered on the edge of oblivion, and here we stood, our fate hinging on a fragment of hope so fragile it could shatter at any moment. "Mara, we need to hurry." Vex's warning broke through the haze of noise as I glanced at the fluctuating power readings. "I think I can know." With a sudden, shuddering deep groan, the reactor released a violent shockwave, hurling us backwards. I smashed into the console, sparks showering around us, blocking my vision as I struggled to regain my footing. "Vex," I gasped, fighting to get up, but sheer panic clouded the air as alarms shrieked in concert with the reactor core exploding in an array of colors, splintered light, dark shadow bleeding together, gears shifting into destiny. "Mara." His voice was laced with urgency, but I couldn't dare twist my head to see him. All I could feel was the pulsating energy, desperately thrumming against saturated aim. Was it empowering or devastating? The answers danced just out of reach, and as the first true wave of understanding washed over me, unrelenting and fierce, I could only half wonder what it might mean for the last living stars of a dying galaxy. The explosion hit with the force of 1,000 suns, throwing me across the engine bay like a rag doll. As I crashed against the bulkhead with a grunt, the world spun chaotically around me, a kaleidoscope of colors fizzling out into darkness and back to clarity. "Mara," Vex's voice shattered through the haze, pulling me back to the present. I blinked against the dust and sparks swirling in the aftermath of the explosion, the scent of burnt metal filling my lungs. Pain blossomed in my shoulder, but I pushed myself up on unsteady legs, frantic to find him. "Vex," I swallowed hard as I stumbled forward, tutorials on safety protocols flickering through my mind like a broken hologram. The reactor had been unstable, sending a violent wave cascading through the ship. If he'd been near the core, over here, his voice came from the shadows, drenched in urgency. I turned toward the sound, finally catching sight of his silhouette, barely illuminated by the glowing embers of the reactor's core. He was crouching low, peering into the cascading sparks beneath a crumpled piece of equipment that had been flung from its mooring. "Are you okay?" I reached him, my heart clawing its way free from my chest as I knelt beside him. There was a deep gash above his brow, crimson staining his fur, but the fierce look in his amber eyes told me he wasn't ready to fall apart yet. "Don't worry about me. We need to check the systems." He turned back to the tangled mess of wires and circuitry, hands working frantically, his face stern and focused. With every jolt from the ship's shuddering frame, I could see him wrestle with the dread he would not voice. "If we don't stabilize the core, it's going to go under again." I nodded, gritting my teeth against the pain in my shoulder now throbbing like loud artillery fire. This was our moment, to unite as captains of our fate, just like we had done so many times before, scaling the height of chaos together. "I can manage the stabilization sensors," I said, forcing farther into the chaos. "You find the backup mainframe and relink the power grid with the AST. You know," he shot back, turning to me with intensity, "No, you need to stay here. If we're going to fix this, I have to do it from the mainframe." "Vex, we can't split up," I protested, feeling a flood of anger and desperation surge through me. This wasn't the time to fight over leadership. If you go off on your own, there's no telling what could happen. Besides, we have a ship to save. He stepped back, a wildfire of frustration igniting in his stance. "I'm the engineer, you're the pilot, which is why you're the backup, and I'm the one who knows how to fly us out of here." Our voices echoed, blending with the low rumble of sirens and sparks. Captain and engineer, the tempest of trust eroding under the weight of desperate choices. We had always balanced the ship, and now it seemed we were coming apart at the seams. Fine, he threw his hands up in defeat, emotion teetering dangerously close to breaking. Then let's do it together and quit arguing, all right. A relief surged through me, mingling with the adrenaline of our task. I took a steadying breath, nodding, all right, let's go then. In that moment, a team once more, we navigated the wreckage, patching the wiring as we moved toward the mainframe. Familiar locations transformed under the chaos. Shadows loomed, surfacing memories of missions past, and I could feel the weight of every life we held in our hands. As we entered the central bridge, I was struck by the sight of blueprints of the galaxy flickering across the screens, star maps interspersed with data feeds. My stomach sank when I noticed something ominous, a muted alarm pulsing, drawing attention to the astrological readings. Tell me this isn't what I think it is. I strained, pointing toward the monitor showing the approaching squadron of Devourer ships forming in clusters near Concordia Sol. What the Vex gaped, hands hesitating above the control panel. We made it out of there. They can't hunt us so quickly. But they could. Echoes of the past screamed through my mind, a rush of terror marking our every step. A kaleidoscope of crimson ships wreaking havoc through devastated worlds, taking lives as mindlessly as predators. Each blinking dot on that screen was a reminder of our failure if we didn't act swiftly. If they're here already, the last Astra crystal might be compromised, I breathed. We need to patch this up fast. On it. Vex began typing feverishly, fingers flying across the holographic console. I don't know if I can override the controls and redirect power with the reactor compromised. A tension threaded through the air, making everything feel brittle as I watched him work. Determination etched in every furrow of his brow. You can do it. We're not losing the albatross again, I promised, trying to infuse steel into his resolve. A flicker of doubt crossed his features, then was gone. All right, I'll do it for you. I didn't have time to grasp the weight of those words. With an urgency that wasn't my own, I moved to reroute the controls, grounding the ship with energy that could only come from the last fragile remnants of my faith in him. With each action, I felt the bond deepen like roots intertwining beneath the soil, an unyielding connection forged in the fires of crisis. Suddenly, the ship jolted under my feet. A tremor cascaded through the deck. Vex, what was that? I turned to him, every instinct flaring in alarm. There's a ship docked adjacent to our hold, he said, eyes wide. They're boarding. They've found us. Grab a plasma rifle. He hollered, moving instinctively as the lights above flickered and the alarm blared once more. If we have time for decisions, we're dead. I sprinted toward the armory, the dim lights turning into a perilous beacon honing in on our fates. I snatched a rifle, feeling the weight settle comfortably in my hands even as my heart raced. The familiar heft soothed me, while anticipation scraped at the edges of fear mingling in the air. When I returned, Vex had scoured through the monitor displaying live feeds of the ship. They're armed and prepping for entry. Round up the shields. It won't hold for long, he snapped, a fierce passion igniting between us, pushing him forward. I'll do what I can, but we'll still need to get through to the control panels. I nodded, ready to lay down my life for the ship, for him. I'll provide cover. Just steady that power surge so we can get out of here. With a nod, we aligned. It was our alliance to each other, holding tight against the marauding despair as the door shuddered again. Steel. Gray shadows fell behind Vex, darkness clawing toward us as I aimed the rifle. Get ready. My grip tightened against the cold metal. Anticipation thrummed through me as the door burst open, flooding the chamber with an onslaught of blaring red lights and ominous figures dressed in armor devourer soldiers, their twisted forms inexorably reaching out toward us. And now, without a second thought, I pulled the trigger, blinding beams piercing through the pending darkness. Vex pulled down another command as chaotic blasts splintered around us. Explosions erupted against metal, shouts vibrating against the hull. A dance of survival igniting in the fiery storm ahead. Get down, I yelled, my heart hammering as we fought side by side. Razor precision and desperate trust colliding in the heart of chaos. It didn't matter how many of them came, we would push back every shadow until we were free. In between layers of gunfire, Vex shouted between bursts of energy, "If we can hold this mainframe, we can, for what?" And I shot back, ire building as I leaned behind cover. "To save ourselves or save those left." "Both," he countered defiantly, anger seeping into every word. "Anything less won't be enough." Was that really true? I pressed myself against the wall, inhaling deeply as the echoes of their shouts fused into the chaotic melody of survival. We had always fought for the living, and if anything was going to come of this latest push, we'd do it together. With every shot that rang out, I could feel something grow between us, a determination to break the shackles of fate. And in that instant, I theoretically understood the cosmic threads weaving us together. Each bullet fired, each pulse of energy released, it pointed toward a destiny that intertwined like flares of burning stars. "We'll reclaim it," I murmured as I slung a shower of radiant energy at the closest soldier, watching as they staggered and fell. "We have something they can't take." The steel resolve hardened in Vex's gaze, and for the first time, I could see we were no longer just two outcasts fleeing a dying galaxy. No, we were a force to be reckoned with, a pair of broken heroes standing against the tide of darkened skies. And whatever we harvested within this storm, we wouldn't let it shatter our bond. The air crackled around us as the push intensified, shaping our future amid the destruction, beckoning us further into the darkness, ready for the fight ahead. Vex and I had pieces of a greater puzzle, the greater players within an unfolding game, and wherever the stars led us next, we would walk together, side by side. The chaos roared around us, a living entity fueled by our desperation, and the knowledge that time was a vicious beast, gnashing its teeth at our heels. I fired a burst of energy toward an advancing line of devourer soldiers, while Vex worked to stabilize the ship with the flick of holographic screens and panicked commands. The electric hum of our rifles mixed with the guttural growls of the intruders, a cacophony building into a crescendo of uncertainty and resolve. I ducked behind a broken console as a wave of energy blazed past my head, the heat of it singeing my fur. Vex continued orchestrating the ship's dwindling power supply, his fingers dancing across the control panel while I provided cover, every shot echoing like a drumbeat in my chest. "Umara, the left flank," Vex shouted, pointing toward where costumed figures surged forward, thick armor glinting ominously in the fluorescent glow. I tightened my grip, adrenaline pumping into my veins as I adjusted my aim, squeezing the trigger again and again. I knew we couldn't hold them off forever, but the tension inside me sparked with purpose. "The shields won't hold," I hollered back. "We can't win this fight with blasters alone." Vex glanced over his shoulder, a fierce determination lighting his eyes, swirling with shadows of doubt, swirling just under the surface. "Maybe we don't have to," he said through gritted teeth. "We can make a distraction, circuit their systems as they rush through. It will give us time." Before he could finish, the main door's metal groaned as yet another group of devourers surged through, their dark, jagged outlines crashing against the light. The moment came crashing down, the thrill of combat now teetering dangerously close to despair. I could feel the stakes rising, the tension coiling like a lethal viper ready to strike. "We're running out of options, Vex," I shouted, pushing my back against the wall. "If we can't redirect power before they overwhelm us, it's all over." Vex more than met my eyes, a flickering connection spanning across despair and camaraderie. "Get to the auxiliary control console. I can guide you from here, we need to stay together, just trust me." The urgency in his tone cut through the quote of fear that had begun to burrow deep within me. He was right, we could either fight or we could think. "I'll protect you from here." "You take that panel." Before I could argue, he hurled a radiant explosive from his belt toward the incoming soldiers. "Now go," he shouted, the explosive sending shockwaves through the deck. The blast reverberated against the walls, even taking some of the attackers down, confusion tearing through their ranks. With a pulse of energy sending me forward, I dashed to the auxiliary controls, reaching the console just as another round of devourers seemed to regain their footing. Patch me through," I yelled, my fingers dancing over the buttons of the console, trying to decipher the intricate patterns. The device was ancient tech, hodgepodge of remnants from the past civilizations that once thrived in daydreams of peace and unity. "Well, hold your ground, Mara," Vex's voice crackled in my ear. "Divert the energy flow to the aft reactor. I can create an overload in their system if you give me just a few seconds." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. The stars beyond the surroundings echoed in my mind, their brilliance reflecting a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. I began rerouting the power, sensations of familiarity and loss threading through my chest as I remembered the beauty of exploring the galaxy together on the Albatross during the brighter days. As the ship shuddered beneath me, a dark realization settled. Would we ever return to those days? Would our tales of wonder become just ghosts flickering on the edge, lost among the void? Mara, Vex's voice pierced through my internal chaos. "Stay focused. In 3, 2, 1. Now," with a flick of a final switch, tremors rippling along the ship. A thunderous roar beat down from the reactor bay. I grabbed onto the console as an intense wave of energy surged backward, cascading through the power conduits and into the energy sources feeding directly to the intruder's systems. Then silence. It echoed through the chamber as the devourers halted in their advance, confusion replacing the aggression in their eyes. It was a moment suffused with tension, a heartbeat caught in eternity. And then the lights dawned in the opposite spectrum, luminescent orange overtaken by flashes of chaotic electric blue illuminating the room. "Mara," Vex's gruff voice brought me back to myself, spinning around to see sparks flying from the advancing ships as their systems short-circuited. Visitors from across universes twisted in disbelief before collapsing like house of cards. "We did it," I yelled, the wave of adrenaline sending me rushing toward Vex, who was still anchored to the console. "Just stick to the plan," he called back, fingers still synchronizing through lines of code. That brilliant mind of his forever a flurry of thoughts, creating possibilities from despair. "And that is," I pressed, sparks making the air around me smell electric. "Find a nearby emergency hatch. I'll create the window we need." As the energy crackled through the walls, I nodded again, steeling my resolve to fight for our escape. "Got it." I turned to push through the mayhem, shooting and ducking as I moved past crumbled consoles, smoke swirling like a thick specter clinging to life. The alarms blared louder, an overwhelming crescendo blurring the lines between hope and despair. Over here, I spotted an emergency hatch half covered with debris, my heart racing. With just a little more push, I was throwing lightweight metal aside. "Come on." I could hear Vex's voice crackling through the din. "Be ready, Mara. I'm about to boost the power. It's going to be explosive." That was when I knew our whole future was hanging by a thread, and somehow we had to keep it together, not just for ourselves, but for everyone beyond those metallic hallways laden with disillusion. Finally, with a determined shove, the hatch swung open, releasing a gust of cool air mixed with smoke. "Get ready." Life beyond invited me in, breath of clarity amid the wreckage, but my heart still tugged at the weight of uncertainty. "I'm going through," I asked, breathless, swiveling back just as he confirmed. "Now, before anything else, I'm right behind you." I lunged through the hatch and staggered onto the ledge, a fleeting glimpse of the stars twinkling above sprawling beyond the main hull. But as I glanced back, a sound reverberated through the air. A thunderclap of energy unleashed. Vex's face was a tempest of determination mingled with fear, a singular moment that would be etched into our stories for all time. The pulse of energy shot through the chamber, an explosion of incandescent light piercing the darkness surrounding me. "Vex!" I screamed, heart pounding faster than the forces around us, thrumming with desperation. The sight of him silhouetted against the light sent a wave of protectiveness surging through me. "Go," he yelled, eyes fierce, and in that moment I felt the gravity of our existence tilt towards a bittersweet declaration of sacrifice. Staring against the blinding radiance behind him, realization blazed within me. With him battling the storm alone, sacrificing himself to shield our escape, I was left with a choice: stay and hope I could save him, or flee, preserving the one thing that could turn fate back. Vex, I swallowed, grief bubbling beneath my determination. I won't leave you. Imara, I'm counting on you. We've come too far. Don't you dare. The explosion surged, throwing me backward. Blinding sparks erupted, cutting through the edges of shadows, looking as though they were burning the air around us as Vex's silhouette faded into the chaos. Without thinking, I lunged back through the hatch, and the warmth of the fire wrapped its arms around me. Vex, I cried, but already my legs propelled me further from the heart of the ship. His presence faded into the storm, tearing through his world. Pieces of our lives, dissolving like ashes, whipped away. The corridor darkened like a tunnel, lacking escape into the light. But forward I flew. Tears streamed down my face and determination mixed with dread. I would find him. I would find a way to bring him back. The weight of his trust settled within me. I could not let it shatter. Across the horizon, the Devourers could be heard growing frantic, struggling to regain control of their systems, with their technological advantage yielding scattered doubts amid the chaos. The blackness swelled with shadows, but hope twinkled at the edge. I darted down the ship's main corridor, urgency burning in my veins. The chaos erupted into chaos, heart pounding with every fleeting second, every uncertain breath pushing me forward as I grasped the larger implications unfurling. I'll find you, Vex, I whispered fiercely to the stars blazing overhead, watching as the albatross began to tremble under the weight of collapse. The remnants of our past lay shrouded under shadows, the cool night air nearly too sweet to breathe. But I knew one thing. Our fight was far from over, and somewhere, somehow, I would bring him back. As I reached for escape beyond the confines of despair, everything I had ever dreamt of pulling me forward. The stories we'd shared, the laughter we created, and the hopes we nurtured in the quiet corners of tranquility, all combining into a unity against the oncoming storm. And as the stars beckoned, I stepped into the unknown, determined to rewrite our fate and embrace the mysteries lying ahead. The galaxy awaited, and with it would come our chance for redemption, to reconnect the threads that fate had sought to shatter. We would not remain broken. We had become more than survival against despair. We would forge the destiny anew. I drifted through the remnants of the albatross, the once vibrant ship now reduced to smoldering metal and twisted debris. Smoke lingered in the air like a mournful ghost, creeping into my lungs as I forced myself to push deeper into the ruins, desperate to find a way back to Vex. The overwhelming sense of loss coiled around my heart, but I couldn't let it paralyze me. I would not let fear or grief claim victory. As I navigated the wreckage, flashes of chaos replayed in my mind. The explosion, the blinding light, and Vex's fierce determination etched against the backdrop of destruction. He was out there, somewhere. I could feel it in the marrow of my bones, like a tether connecting us across the void. "Hurry, Mara," I whispered to myself, repeating the mantra like a lifeline. I had to keep moving. "You're not done yet." The corridor ahead twisted, collapsing under the weight of its own despair. Wires resembling veins snaking across the walls, sparking sporadically as if trying to reclaim consciousness. The acrid scent of burnt metal assailed my senses, mingling with a more potent odor, the unmistakable scent of Devourers. They had boarded this ship after all, and I had to tread carefully. "Where are you, Vex?" The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. I crouched low, my heart pounding against my ribcage as I peered into the shadows. A convoy of Devourer soldiers moved with lethal precision, their armor glinting like malevolent specters in the half-light. They prowled through the wreckage, scanning for any signs of life, their guttural growls resonating through the metallic hull. My heart raced. If I engaged now, it would only lead to another futile battle, and I wouldn't risk losing Vex without knowing how to fight for him. I crept along the edge of the corridor, heart thumping, every instinct urging me to slip through unnoticed. And then, from the corner of my eye, I caught the flicker of an upward hatch. It seemed undamaged, a route that could lead me back toward the main deck, closer to his last position. Without breaking my stride, I darted toward it, slipping through the shadows like a whisper. The moment I hoisted myself up, a chill spread through my body, not just from the proximity of the devourers, but from something else entirely. The air hummed with violation, a sense of foreboding pressing down on me like a dark fog. I have to find him, I whispered, clenching my fists around my rifle. As I moved upward, I could hear the distant echoes of battle. The sounds of energy weapons firing, shouts of anger, and the unyielding pulse of impending danger sparking under the surface of chaos. I felt every ounce of bile rise in my throat, fear grating at my resolve, and for a moment I hesitated. But then I remembered Vex, his fierce eyes holding unyielding faith in me. It fueled my desire to reclaim what we had lost. How could I falter when he had braved the storm alone? Hold on, Vex. The hatch swung open with a slight creak, revealing a larger chamber littered with debris and chaos. Ahead, the silhouettes of devourers were thrashing about, and in the center, standing valiantly against the advancing horde, was Vex, damaged but unbroken. A surge of relief coursed through me, and I swallowed down my disbelief. "I'm coming for you," I called, charging into the fray, my rifle blazing with renewed purpose. Vex turned, pain etched on his features, but disbelief quickly twisted into unrelenting determination as he caught sight of me. "Mara," he shouted, and in that instant my heart soared. But panic flared as more soldiers turned their attention, gripped by the sudden chaos my presence had caused. We fought back to back, energy bolts flying around us like furious fireflies. I could feel the rhythm of our synergy returning, the familiarity guiding my every move as we became a tempest of fury against them. "We can't hold them," Vex roared, energy crackling dangerously close. "The power grid is still unstable." "Then we need a distraction," I yelled back, eyes scanning the room before landing on another panel, a faint glow emanating from the fallen equipment strewn about. "The auxiliary console. If we blow it, we'll create an opening." "On it," he breathed, darting toward it as I provided cover fire, pushing back the encroaching devourers with every ounce of strength I had left. "Amara, keep moving forward. I've rigged it to explode," Vex panted, hands dancing frantically between panels. "Make it happen." A new energy ignited between us, an electrifying trust coursing through as I continued to fight, calibrating fiercely to the beat of his heart. I felt his resolve intertwining with mine, a bond fortified in the crucible of chaos. "Almost there," he grunted, desperately tapping the buttons. I swung toward the advancing wave, heart racing as our positions aligned, the sky outside brightening through fractured walls, fissures of light cascading into the dark. With a final blast, the console sparked and ignited, the explosion framing Vex in a shower of light. He turned, urgency propelling him forward toward me as the thrumming roar of the blast enveloped us both. Now, we dove forward just as it detonated, the shockwave propelling us from the anchor of chaos into the unknown. I lifted my head, gripping his arm as we soared through the hole, avoiding the cloud of dust and debris consuming our enemies. Once I'd gathered my bearings, I pulled Vex along, determined to find a way outside. "Where do we go now? We need to reach the escape pods. They're our best shot," he shouted, eyes scanning the wreckage. "That way." Our path twisted back toward the hull's compromised section, the lay, outgrowing increasingly convoluted as the ship creaked around us, but we pressed on. Every step was a reminder of what we stood to lose or gain. Fighting side by side, we sculpted meaning amid the chaos, our bond solidifying, anchoring us as we careened toward freedom. "Left," I shouted, dragging him around the corner where the marked emergency exits lay. The interior of the escape pods glinted ahead, twin vessels shimmering through the haze as they beckoned with promises of salvation. But outside, we could hear the turmoil of the devourers rallying from their fallen brethren, a brooding storm now determined to capture us. Over there, Vex pointed to the far left, where one pod stood untouched. Without a moment to lose, we dashed toward it, the murmur of dread nagging in the back of my mind. Every moment pulsed with danger. The ship was crumbling, and the darkness felt inescapable. Go, get us out of here. I scrambled for the console, fingers trembling, pressing buttons that flickered erratically as if uncertain. Would this save us or seal our fate? With a shudder, the pod systems hummed to life, and I held onto the console with everything I had. Initiate, I glanced back at Vex, who had braced himself beside the entry hatch. Our eyes met, the fiery spark cascading through the connection between us. And then the pod launched away, tumbling free of the albatross like a bird finally breaking from its cage, the ship succumbing behind us, collapsing under the weight of despair. The sight of it imploding sent a chill of finality rippling through me, echoing a balance of grief and lethargy. We did it, Vex cried, breaking free of the moment as I adjusted the trajectory. We're out. We soared through space's vastness, leaving the chaos and ruin behind, the tumult fading into the distance. It wasn't just a ship we had lost. It was a piece of our story, but with it, we wrestled free a new beginning from the grasp of despair. I thought I lost you, I murmured, turning to Vex, taking in the grit and exhaustion lingering over him. The connection between us thrummed with an energy that pulsed deeper than mere companionship. It pulsed with the knowledge that we could make it through anything together. You're never getting rid of me that easily. He managed a weak grin, though fatigue hollowed out the edges of his lips. I returned the smile, diluting the lingering shadows with the light that shone within us. Let's see what that ship's got for us. With newfound determination, I charted a course toward the closest fleet base, fingers deftly navigating the unfamiliar screens before us. But as we crossed the threshold into open space, my eyes caught the distant figure of the devourer ships, lingering like dark specters, ever relentless. A gnawing dread twisted within as they rallied in pursuit, their forces amalgamating into one vicious storm, determined to reclaim what once belonged to them. We can't outrun them, Vex warned as he watched the display flicker with urgency, counting the incoming signatures. We'll find a way. We always do. A determination filled my voice, a spark igniting from the depths of despair. Then let's not let them catch us. With each passing moment, a new plan solidified. Awareness filled the air and forged a ripple of hope between us. Together, we would stamp out the fear, transforming it into a tenacity that dared us to dream beyond the stars. The engines hummed an electric melody, a vivid reminder of what we fought for. We would gather our strength, uniting against the storm now chasing us through the void. "We're ready, partner?" I asked, prepared for the ensuing chaos. "More than ready," Vex replied, a fierce fire dancing in his eyes as he gripped the console. Together, we steered into the embrace of the unknown, our destinies intertwined beneath the vast twinkling blanket of stars surrounding our fragile forms. The fight lay ahead, but there was too much at stake to falter now. The clarity of our shared existence guided us forward, fueled by determination, forged in trust, and bound together as we fought the rising tide of darkness. In that moment, echoing power pulsed through the ship, and I realized that our bond could weather anything, even the relentless storm that hung at our heels. They viewed us as expendable, but we were not mere survivors. We were fighters, enduring against the odds, ready to reclaim what darkness sought to steal. And together, we would not only write our story but change the fate of the galaxy itself. With fire in my heart and Vex steadfast by my side, I charted our course toward revenge, or redemption. One way or another, we'd reclaim the stars, and the fight had only just begun. The low hum of the emergency lights flickered erratically, casting a dance of shadows across the cramped compartment of the escape pod. All that lay before me, empty space, an expanse of stars twinkling like distant memories, was fused with a sense of despair and defiance. We had escaped the wreckage of the albatross, but in doing so, We had opened Pandora's box of chaos. The Devourers were relentless, a reminder that the battle we fought was far from over. "We're safe for now," I said aloud, as if to shatter the uncertainty hanging thick in the air. Beside me, Vex was tracking the movements of the Devourers on the control panel, his jaw tight, eyes narrowed. A storm of calculations brewing beneath the surface of his cool exterior. Safe doesn't mean free. He didn't turn from the console, fingers flicking across buttons with fierce precision. "They are on our tail. If we make one wrong move, it won't matter how fast we run." Dread pooled in my gut, clenching tighter with each pulse of his words. "So what's our move?" I stepped closer, standing shoulder to shoulder with him, knowing we needed to conjure a fight from the embers of this new existence. Our survival hinged on this. "There's a nearby relay station," Vex said, working through the data laid out before him. "If we get there, we can boost our comms and send a distress signal to the fleet before it's too late. You will have to navigate us through the debris field." He took a breath, the tension vibrating against the air. "The Devourers won't wait for us to regroup." "Then let's get moving," I replied, passion igniting within me. I felt invincible, ready to plunge deeper into the chaos that surrounded us. But I also needed to be cautious. Our enemies were not to be underestimated. "I've plotted a course," he said, finally tearing his gaze from the console to meet mine. The spark of determination reflected a newfound covenant between us, an understanding that fate had brought us this far, and we were resilient enough to pursue the victory awaiting us. Hold on tight. I braced myself as he engaged the thrusters. The escape pod shot forward, already displacing the remnants of the albatross into the echoing past. I felt the gravitational pull surge through, pulling at me, teetering between light and shadow. The vastness of space loomed ahead, and I gripped the edge of the control panel tightly, summoning fortitude as the stars blurred into lines. "Watch out!" Vex yelled, and I snapped back to reality just in time. I swerved the pod instinctively to avoid a large piece of floating debris, the remnants of what had once been a glittering outpost. "Can't believe we're doing this," I murmured as we zigzagged through the field of dying stars, keeping the distance between us and the advancing Devourer ships. Stray shrapnel whizzed by in chaotic arcs, flaring alarms echoing into the tension. "You just focus on steering while I stabilize the comms," Vex urged, fingers gliding over the panel. But I could feel the weight of the galaxy pushing down on us both. "We have to make this count. We may not get another chance." The thrusters strained as I maneuvered the pod deftly, avoiding serpentine metallic scraps that exploded in the wake of past battles. Each moment burned like a brand, reminding me of how fragile life had become. A disorienting dance against the imminent threat of death that loomed around us. Approaching the relay station, Vex announced as it loomed into view, an outpost standing against the void, a flickering beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. As we drew closer, I could see the station's exterior, cool metal kissed by the luminescence of the stars. "We're coming in hot, ready for docking," I grinned, adrenaline pumping. "Just give me control of the thrusters," he replied sharply, a fire igniting in his eyes. The mix of fear and exhilaration illuminating determination within me. "Prepare for manual docking. 3, 2, 1 now." With Vex guiding me, I reached out to stabilize as the pod slid into position. Metal scraping against metal, a visceral reminder of the defeat we fled. The comms crackled as the engine released a throaty roar, leaving vibrations in its wake. "Seal the hatches," Vex shouted, and I slammed my palm against the controls as the hatch sealed shut, locking us both in as if shielding against time itself. "Let's see if we can contact the fleet." He focused on the console, deftly navigating the fraying wires and switches, the last remnants of a world fading behind us. My heartbeat quickened as he gestured for me to lend a hand. "Help me reset the receiver. We might need to amplify the signal," he directed. Together, we made the necessary adjustments, steeling ourselves as I leaned over each component, feeling the vibrations. The soft thrum of life still coursing through whatever remnants remained. I can almost taste freedom, I breathed, and he shot me a quick look, a flicker of a smile faintly surfacing through his concern. We have to keep our wits about us, Mara. This isn't just a routine signal. Once we raise the alarm, they'll come for us. I'd rather die fighting than cower in fear, I said, steeling my resolve deeper still. We're far from finished. Vex nodded solemnly, eyes narrowing as the final adjustments fell into place. I slipped back into the pilot's seat, my fingers tracing over the controls, heart racing with the sheer intensity of our choices. Ready? He asked, barely meeting my gaze. The question resonated between us, and I caught fire from the fated energy we cultivated over countless battles, both near and far. Let's do this. With a flick of my wrist, the pod hummed with life, the distress signal firing into the infinite chasm, the pulse of a dying beacon in hopes it would reach an ear willing to listen. Static filled the void around us, crackling against the backdrop of life or death urgency. Incoming transmission, Vex shouted, fingers dancing across the console as the screen burst to life, revealing a silhouette. A voice struggling to coordinate chaos. Unidentified escape pod, state your status. The voice was sharp, cutting through the ether. I barely recognized it, but the urgency in their eyes was palpable even through the screen. We've just escaped the albatross, which has been lost to the devourers. I shouted, urgency surging through more than just my words. We need immediate assistance. They're pursuing us as we speak. Hold your position. We're scrambling a response team. The figure barked, and I releases a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Stay alert. The devourers are gaining ground. I turned to Vex, tension echoing in the air. Do you think they'll make it? I don't know, he murmured, voice tight. But we can't let this be the end. We have to fight. Just then, the station's alarm wailed in high-pitched urgency, the screen flickering replacements for clarity. The devourer ships were closing in, carving a path of destruction toward the outpost. They've found us, Vex growled, eyes scanning the display, tension coiling like a great beast ready to strike. Look there, he pointed as I followed his gaze, dread filling the pit of my stomach as I recognized the familiar crest of a devourer flagship on the screen, its menacing silhouette gliding through the star-speckled darkness, a predator ready to reclaim its prize. No, I shouted, swallowing my fear and channeling it into determination. We can't. We won't let that happen. Focus on the defense systems, Vex replied, his tone fierce. We'll need all the firepower we can muster. With a quick nod, I shifted the controls, diverting energy toward weapons systems, the panel lighting up like a furious heart, a reminder we wouldn't let fear eclipse our resolve. I keyed in defense shields, feeling the outpost hum beneath our feet, as if absorbing the energy around us. Devourers incoming. Vex's voice rang through the chaos, a litany of urgency as he monitored our sensors, adrenaline flowing like wildfire between us. Brace, I shouted, my heart racing, pulse of dread clinging to my throat. The ship shuddered as the enemy unleashed a volley of fire, explosive bursts brightening the shadows around us. Plasma shields momentarily flickered but held firm. We can't withstand this. Vex grunted as he fed commands into the interface, setting the weapons to deploy. Everything felt heavy, the air thick with electricity as I felt the familiar bond rumbling beneath our skins, furious and relentless. We'll show them. I drew a deep breath, steeling myself. Prepare the counterstrike, engaging now. He yelled through the grinding force of our ship shaking against the pressures of survival, fingers racing across control surfaces, feeding guidance into the dark. With a roar, our outpost surged forth, weapon systems coming online as we launched fiery bolts toward the enemy's encroaching fleet. The brilliant streaks of light bursting through the void like shooting stars. Most of the devourer ships veered and twisted, an attempt to dodge destruction and retreat, but not all succeeded. Surging adrenaline coursed through my veins, and I reveled in the exhilaration of battle unleashing. Hold steady, Vex shouted, repeating to my echoing thoughts. The gauge fluctuating as the beam of energy surged back toward our defense shields. We're holding. I called out as I surged back into my focus, heart pounding in my chest, echoes of the battle blurring into a rhythm that matched our hearts. Every fiber of my being pulsed with resolve, and together we fought against the encroaching abyss. Then the lights dimmed, sirens wailing louder, the shields faltering beneath the barrage of relentless assault. "No, come on, hold," Vex grunted, pulse quickening as he readjusted power distribution across the panels, eyes darting with urgency. Rerouting power now, I volleyed the energy flow where it was needed, positioning myself to stabilize the weapons. We became one forces of desperation and determination, spinning into a whirlwind of resolve. But just as we found our rhythm, a sudden, oppressive jolt knocked us both back. Another blast landed too close, metal shrieked, and alarms blared through the chamber. "Patch the shields. We can't." There was too much noise, and suddenly the console sparked violently. I felt a slice of immediate fear that threaded my mind with worries about survival, about the galaxy slipping further into darkness. "Vex, we're losing power," I shouted, scrambling to engage the stabilization systems, the room swirling with electrifying energy that felt alive, aggressive. "I know. We can't give in," he roared, determination igniting as he clawed back at the console, working rapidly to implement emergency overrides. "Come on," desperation clawed at my chest, but I pushed through the fear, draining my resolve through the team we'd forged together, the stories we'd woven among the stars. I glanced at the incoming Devourer strike force. They weren't just relentless, they were organized, an advancing force driven with a single-mindedness to eradicate the resistance we had built. That flagship, my heart raced as I realized it was the heart of their forces, pulsing with dark energy against the void. "If we take it down, it'll scatter the rest." He caught fire from the revelation, eyes brightening with renewed purpose. "Then let's not waste this chance. We'll hit them hard together," he said, adrenaline racing, knocking that final shred of fear aside. "No backing down," I echoed, fingers flying across the panel, adjusting course as I plotted our trajectory straight at the Devourer flagship. "Prepare to engage weapons systems," Vex shouted, urgency rushing through him, amplifying the resolve while we locked our focus on that singular target. And just then, the world erupted into motion. Flagship loomed, exuding a palpable aura. It felt alive, raging against the void, weaving chaos in its wake. I could almost hear the heartbeat of the ship, echoing dread in tandem with my own, a pulse sinking into harmony as it surged toward its deadly intentions. "Now," Vex yelled as the systems clicked into place, and I felt the rush of 1,000 decisions gathering in momentum. The blinding light surged forth, bolts striking against the hull as if igniting reality. With each volley we unleashed, determination surged through our bond, a clash of light and shadow ripping apart the encroaching darkness. We were piercing through the storm, a resolve sharpened amid rising chaos. We knew our destiny, intertwined together like the fates of stars scaling the galaxy. And nothing could extinguish the flame we had built, make it count, because in that moment, it would either lead to redemption or tragedy, for every life locked away, and through the heart of despair, I soared onward, knowing that whatever awaited beyond that flagship, we would face it together. Together, we would reclaim the stars. Fires roared as the flagship erupted, the pulse of destruction rippling across the battlefield, cutting through all that had been lost. And even as the universe spun chaotic, a flicker of light emerged, illuminating the darkness, and beneath it surged the brilliance of vengeful rebellion. From the wreckage, we rose anew, igniting the stars and the universe once again. But little did we know, as the flagship crumbled into the night, the breadth of our journey had only just begun. The galaxy was far more restless than we could fathom. A sleeping giant now awakened, and fate had many stories to tell. A destiny ignited in the stars awaited us. The stars sprawled across the void like a tapestry of scattered jewels, remnants of civilizations lost in the shadow of the Devourers. Eclipsed beneath the chaos of battle, I felt the weight of our recent victory mingled with trepidation, Every heartbeat echoed the uncertain tide of our fate, while the albatross lay in ruins behind us, a monument to what had been and what could never return. Mara, Vex's voice pulled me back from the depths of my thoughts, urgent and crisp against the backdrop of flickering screens and chaotic energy. We need to stabilize the pod. The power fluctuations are getting worse, and we'll drift too far if we don't engage the thrusters now. I snapped to attention, energy surging through me as I shifted focus to the control panel where warning lights blinked, illuminating the shadows of impending despair. I'm on it. My fingers danced across the console, calibrating systems while my pulse raced with renewed determination. What about the damage to the weapons system? We barely took down that flagship. There's still a chance to repair the main generator before it drains completely, Vex said, scanning the readouts, his eyes narrowed with purpose. If we get there, we can upgrade the energy flow, stabilizing both our weapons and thrusters, which should allow us to engage the remaining Devourer ships, or at least evade their grasp. But we need to hurry. As anticipation mingled with urgency, I took a deep breath, bolstering my resolve. We had survived the chaos laid out before us, but the shadows lingering on the horizon were determined to drag us back into their grip. Let's get moving then, I replied, keeping my focus squarely on the controls as I adjusted our trajectory toward the nearest repair station. A rusty relic nestled within the debris field, long forgotten but still operational. In a matter of moments, we braced ourselves as the pod surged forward, navigating through a minefield of twisted remnants. The strands of determined energy coursed through our bond, our shared experiences, knitting us closer together amid the whirlwind of chaos. Keep your eyes peeled, I said, glancing sideways at Vex. The Devourers may regroup quickly after the explosion. If they realize we're vulnerable, they'll come in like a pack of hungry wolves. Just focus on the route, he replied, gritting his teeth as the pod jolted slightly, rattling us both. I'll handle the systems, you've got this. Together we fought through the ever-present dread creeping at the edges, navigating the treacherous terrain as the remnants of the once-proud albatross faded behind us. Each jolt, each ricochet of our vessel only served to hone my senses. I could feel the stakes rise. Failure loomed terrifyingly close, drawn as tight as a bowstring, waiting to unleash chaos. After what felt like hours of weaving through wreckage, the station came into view. A chipped and dented structure floating aimlessly through the star-speckled expanse. Though weathered and worn, lights flickered desperately against the encroaching darkness. There, Vex shouted, a fervor igniting in his gaze. We're almost there. Prepare to engage docking protocols. The moment our pod settled against the station's docking port, I felt the ship shudder as a wave of instability reverberated through the controls. Activating stabilization locks now, I said, fingers flying over buttons, battling against the mounting panic crawling in my chest. This better hold. If they're aware of our presence, we won't have long, Vex warned, his voice firm as he supported the task of rerouting power to the defense monitors. I'll handle repairs. Keep an eye on the sensors while they process the next wave of incoming threats. The silence felt thunderous for a heartbeat, poised like a coiled serpent, before alarms suddenly blared, jolting me into action. New Devourer signatures, I shouted, adrenaline spiking as I switched to the sensors. They're coming in fast. 3 blasts, get ready, keep an eye out for patterns, Vex yelled, bustling through his tasks. When they configure their approach, we'll have a chance to exploit it. Desperately analyzing the data flashing across my screen, I searched for any trace of hope before the lights dimmed ominously. We don't have time, I said, panic rising in my throat as I realized the deck began to tremble beneath our feet. The station moaned in response. Vex, just give me a second. It's almost reactivated, he shouted back. Focus, Mara. With my heart thundering against my ribs, I tuned into the darkness surrounding us. feeling the energy the devourers emitted as they approached, pinging at my instincts like the distant echoes of tumult. A sharp breath steadied my resolve. We weren't mere survivors. We were the guardians of a story yet unwritten. Sensors ready, target acquired. I cried as the flickering outlines of the devourer ships grew tighter. Here they come. The two distinct moments melded together, fear colliding with exhilaration as the devourers shot toward us, their intentions clear. As their energy blasts whizzed by, I steeled my focus, heart racing, fingers poised at the controls. And now, Vex shouted, adrenaline pouring into his voice as the station roared back to life. With a blast of electric energy, we responded, sending our weapon fire blazing toward the advancing threat. Bright streaks of light erupted against their hulls, illuminating the darkness and igniting the flames of defiance within. Then, like a starburst igniting across the night sky, the chaos enveloped us once more. Dodge, right, Vex yelled. I spun the controls, narrowly skirting an incoming blast that shattered the debris field behind us, echoing aftershocks resounding painfully against our metal hull. Hold steady. Now it was a furious dance against the odds as we fought back, power crackling with each strike, desperation igniting our spirits as we pushed against the waves of advancement. Our past battles had forged this connection, and in that moment, I knew we couldn't be defeated. We were bound together not just by our challenges, but the fire that emerged from overcoming them. Focusing on the lead ship, now disabled and sputtering, I pushed the thrusters through the console, vibrant energy pouring into my fingertips as a rush of exhilaration surged through me. We need to take down that flagship. Yes, Vex shot back, eyes alight with possibility as the connections forged from earlier battles gained strength. Well, let's finish this. With every pulse of power unleashed, our energy surged back at the devourer ships, collapsing their formations as my heart rhythmically synchronized with the chaos. Timing was everything. Focus blurred as I smiled fiercely, a fight ignited between us fueled by our own story. Rerouting remaining power to the main guns, Vex shouted, fingers flying. We'll take them out one by one, engaging now. I countered, the ship trembling as we unleashed every ounce of energy into the light show above. Brilliant colors erupted into the unyielding darkness, a sign of our resolve, igniting like a beacon on the horizon. The battle swirled around us, every pulse of energy infused with purpose. It settled into a rhythm, devourers falling beneath our coordinated assault, each burst of power, a promise for those crushed beneath their tyranny. Together, Mara, stay with me. Vex poured encouragement into my spirit, a roar of strength lifting me higher as beginnings and endings crashed into the unyielding tide. Just then, an enemy ship broke through the remaining flanks. Spurred by desperation, it launched an energy blast directly toward us. Panic surged again, but instinct kicked in. Our shared connection hummed at my fingertips. A twist, dive, I shouted, rotating the pod instinctively, heart racing as the energy flared brightly behind us, dissipating into the darkness of the vast unknown as we eluded the lethal blast. Hold steady, Vex yelled as he hastily recalibrated the weapons under pressure, eyes intently locked on the pursuit that pressed unforgivingly. A wider stance, don't let them regroup. With the remnants of our combined resolve arcing toward the lead ship, we surged onward. There was a thrill now, a newfound sense of unity igniting that sent every fiber of my being alight with fearlessness. Together, I bellowed, confidence swelling as our destinies intertwined within the combat. Let's reclaim our stars, blast them apart. And as if the cosmos shifted in response to our call, a surge of energy erupted from the depths of our souls, mirroring the heartbeats in time with every release into the ether. The chaos swirled around us, igniting like a brilliant supernova. Our combined voices resonated across the dark void. We fired again, determined as rays of energy swelled into existence, tearing forward with every ounce of power drawn from our bond. The lead ship insatiably arrogant, desperate to cleave into our lives. found itself caught in our tide of energy, engulfed in the searing brilliance we unleashed. "Now's our chance," Vex shouted, and his voice echoed like a battle cry against an empire born of despair. The lead ship cracked under our onslaught, its hull splintering into the void, collapsing like an empty shell. The remaining devourers faltered amidst the chaos, a wave of panic flooding them as the shadows erupted into light with our victory. As the remnants of the lead ship spiraled away, I turned to Vex, breathless, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. Did we actually do it? That's how we get it done," he replied with a triumphant grin. "We reclaim the stars together." But as the echoes of defeat fled into the darkness, I held on to the edges of uncertainty. More waves would rise again. There was still an unfinished story waiting to weave its way through the galaxy. "We'll prepare for potential reinforcements," Vex cautioned as he scanned the screens, and my heart sank as I noticed the multitude of approaching signatures flicker into existence. Every pulse of energy hummed beneath our feet, reminding us how fragile our truce was amidst the looming shadows. "It's a trap," I shouted, dread pooling like ice in my stomach. The Devourers had anticipated our success, and now they rallied their forces, willing to annihilate us in their pursuit to reclaim what they had lost. But we would not go quietly into the night. We had the fire of our friendship at our backs, the swirling shadows forcing resilience from within. "Rocket thrusters," I shouted as I set our course into the void, ready to surge forward once more into the chaos. "We fight. We always fight." As Vex nodded, hearts pounding in unison, we ignited into the abyss with renewed fervor, a relentless flame against the darkness, for we had tasted victory once, and no matter how many storms assailed our newfound bond, we wouldn't let despair snuff it out. The galaxy awaited our resolution, and it would come by our hands for as long as we stood together. In every heartbeat and every step, we would reclaim the stars. But within that uncertainty, whispers of danger still swirled. Behind the fabric of victory, the darkness had a way of threading itself anew, weaving its tale of vengeance into the fabric of every heartbeat. And deep within the corners of the galaxy, slumbering titans awaited their rise. Next, we must confront what awaited us beyond the horizon. The challenges looming ahead would push us beyond the limits of our endurance, changing not only our destinies, but the galaxy itself. And we would be ready. For the unseen forces were orchestrating something far greater than mere battles. The eclipse of worlds, the return of shadows, and our fight to forge the future lay just beyond the stars. We'd intent to unhinge the fabric of despair woven through the cosmos, and our next chapter awaited. As we soared deeper into the velvety embrace of space, a sense of urgency clawed at me, an ominous reminder that the Devourers were not simply an external threat, but a storm gathering around the heart of our resolve. My eyes darted over the sensor display, swimming with alerts and warnings, an electronic tapestry signifying the chaos that loomed just beyond. "What now?" I murmured under my breath, hands clenched around the controls as Vex scoured the screens, his brow furrowed in concentration. "They're regrouping," he murmured, tracing the patterns of the enemy fleet that flickered ominously around us. "Reinforcements are coming. If we don't act quickly, we'll be surrounded." "Then we need to figure out a plan," I replied, feeling the tension knot tighter, an anchor pulling me toward the depths, where shadows carried the weight of despair. "You fix the defense systems while I scan for the best route out of here." He nodded, urgency gleaming in his eyes, and for a moment, a mesmerizing tension lingered in the air between us. Forged amid chaos, our bond had transformed into something fierce and unyielding. "Right," Vex replied, fingers flying across the console, redirecting power, his focus unwavering. "Let me know if you spot anything." As I poured my energy into navigating the intricacies of our surroundings, I felt the familiar electrical hum of the station resonating through the pod. Suddenly the flickering alert spiked, and my stomach dropped as a blinking red indicator signaled our imminent doom. "Mara, they're activating active tracking systems." Vex's voice shook with urgency. "Well, they're pinpointing our location. Then we need to scatter." I snapped, adrenaline surging through my veins. push the thrusters to maximum and divert power to evasive maneuvers. We can't afford to stay in one place. Right. He gritted his teeth, and I could feel his determination infuse the air between us as he wrestled with the controls, forcing energy reserves into overdrive. Just then, the pod shuddered. An energy pulse penetrated the thick haze of space, slamming against us like the fist of some unseen giant. Alarms blared in a discordant chorus, vibrating through the structure, and I felt my heart hammering against my ribcage. "A brace for impact," Vex shouted as I gripped the edge of my seat, the weight of impending doom a heavy shadow on my chest. "Can't we just outrun them? And not if they deploy their assault ships," he growled, concentrating on the console. "Keep your eyes on the sensors." And as if the universe taunted us, another wave of enemy vessels pierced the void crimson and silver, all culminating into a fierce force. Each ship, a reflection of gluttony, surged toward the glimmering pulse of hope that was the escape pod, eager to reclaim what they had lost. "Here they come," I braced, fingers maneuvering deftly across controls, plotting evasive routes amid the chaos swirling on the displays. "Activate shields, energy at max now," Vex shouted, his fierce drive pushing through the air between us, arms steady as he rerouted power effectively. With a shuddering breath, I angled the pod sharply, throwing us into a daring roll as the enemy strike force unleashed hell, blazing energy consuming the fabric of space with glowing trails of destruction. "Stay steady," Vex barked, shifting to diagnostics to assess the workings of the main systems, pulse of determination suffusing every motion. "If we can just hold on." The ship shook with the tremors of our defense as beams of energy ricocheted off the shields, but I felt it, resilience unfurling like wings against forces that sought to tear us apart. "We'll push through, Vex. We're not done yet." Together we became a symphony of recovery, slipping through narrow openings as blinding blasts erupted around us, the chaos coiling tightly against the integrity of the pod. I could feel the swell of fear resonating beneath every frantic pulse, yet a desire to reclaim what lay ahead sent sparks flying through my fingertips. "On your mark, tug left," Vex called as alarms wailed fiercely, signaling the approach of the enemy cruisers inflamed with despair. With a flick of my wrist, I spun the controls, veering hard to the left, just in time to evade the wrath of the charging ships, as they unleashed torrents of energy that sliced through the void behind us. "They've deployed traps," Vex warned. "We can't let them corner us." And then the world erupted into chaos, a violent dance amid the void as more enemies came crashing into us, ships swarming like hungry insects. While my heart raced, tightening with each pulse of our impending fate. "Signal the fleet," I shouted, desperation gnawing at the edges of my resolve. "We need backup." Engaging distress signal, Vex shouted amid the chaotic thrum of combat sent flying up around us. "But we can't stay still long enough to ensure a response." Shaking with determined energy, I redirected the flow toward our engines, feeling the undercurrents shift as we careened deeper into the fray. We had come too far to be swept away now. The stars awaited our story beyond this relentless tide. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught the moment as a Devourer flagship loomed larger, ready to articulate the final stroke, its dark outline silhouetted against the tapestry of stars, a predator ready to swallow us whole. Imara, they're converging. Vex's urgency sliced through my concentration. "We'll have to engage evasive flanking maneuvers. It's a risk. Do it," I shouted back. "Just trust that we can make it through." With a fierce roar, I aligned our aiming trajectory, barely eluding the incoming attacks as we swung wide, bursting through the edges of the melee. Energy beams and debris danced around us, but I remained determined, adrenaline fueled by the fire igniting in my chest. "We've got company," Vex proclaimed through gold flashes of energy, fury weaving light and debris in swirling arcs. Enemies rained down as I maneuvered our path, steering toward the shadows where our chance for survival lay hidden. "Another wave, hold on." The stars flickered beyond the chaos as we plunged into the heart of the devil's own underbelly, threading our way through debris while the sirens blared louder, a haunting call echoing through the metal heart of our vessel. "We're breaking through," Vex shouted, fists pumping the air with excitement. "Look at that, keep moving." The chaos around us began to unveil the glimmers of light peeking through the darkness, the escape routes shaping beyond the grasping tendrils of the waiting predators, and just then there was hope. A chance to fling ourselves beyond the grip of despair. "Now," I roared, plunging the pod onward as we broke free from the swirling masses of chaos. The moment of clarity coalesced as we soared beyond, energy crackling in vibrant hues along the console, igniting an unmistakable sense of triumph between the two of us. "A signal received," Vex shouted, and I felt elation threaten to explode from the depths of my soul. "The fleet reinforcements are reacting. Reinforcements are en route." But as relief flooded in, it was short-lived. On the edge of a triumph still loomed the shadows of what came next. The devourers still tracked us, bolts of fury unleashed behind. "Faster! Chart a new course!" I screamed over the alerts of danger. "We need to outrun them." Vex redirected power, feverish energy arcing between us as the very fabric of our ship strained against the gravitational pull of the chaos. Activating the emergency thrusters now. Brace for impact. With a blast, we surged forward, barrels of energy arcing behind us like falling stars, as I absorbed the fury of the onslaught beating upon our backs. But then, from the gloom a flicker appeared, a distant light beckoning beyond the storm. The rendezvous anew, a joint effort lined against the vast unknown, ready to unveil our next steps across the galaxy. Almost there, Vex shouted, eyes wide with fiery expectation, hope ignited in our hearts. "Let's not stop now," I murmured, a heroine surge igniting against the impending horizon. "We will break through," and just as the light began to expand into a clearer picture ahead, the explosion erupted. The tension breaking into the vastness as shimmering sparks echoed around us like the fireworks of a forgotten festival. The pulse of triumph ringing out, echoing far and wide. And together, for every starlit moment we forged on, we defied the final chorus of despair, our choices resilient as the stars themselves. A beacon of hope spread amidst the chaos. It was time to take our destiny into our hands and uncover the truths poised on the margins of the galaxy. Little did we know, the forces lurking beyond the horizon were not merely the devourers. Ancient prophecies awaited us, weaving together into a tale we were only beginning to understand. Onward, the pulse in my heart surged, to the stars. The explosion heralded not just a battle lost, but a new reckoning looming on the precipice of forever. While our victory came at a price, the journey ahead promised discovery and the unraveling of truths hidden in the depths of darkness. As we approached the rendezvous point, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for those brave enough to step into the unknown. The shadows whispered secrets strained in echoes of the forgotten, and we would learn what lay behind the veil. Whether triumph or tragedy awaited us remained entwined in the fabric of our tale. Little did we know, this wasn't just about vast spaces or endless stars. It was about forging alliances, confronting unspoken truths deeply woven into the very essence of the universe, and navigating the intricacies of destinies yet unwritten. And what awaited us beyond each shimmering point in the sky, beyond every battle we fought, was the very foundation of hope itself, woven through our shared existence, in every sacrifice made, understanding that our purpose would redefine everything. A quest for redemption now beckoned, for we would not be merely heroes, we would evolve into legends, built from the ashes of despair and rising anew among the stars. The journey had just begun. The vastness of space stretched out before us as the stars twinkled like far-off promises. Aboard the battered but resolute escape pod, I felt the siren call of destiny in every beat of my heart. Vex's eyes sparkled with a fierce determination as we neared the rendezvous point, the flicker of hope piercing through the remnants of despair that had shadowed our journey thus far. "Umara, are you ready?" Vex's voice was steady, laced with an intensity that hinted at the stakes we were about to confront. "I've been ready since we set out," I replied, my own resolve hardening. "This is our chance to reclaim everything we've lost, and to stop the devourers for good." The memory of the albatross towered behind us, a ghost of our former lives, memories forged in laughter and camaraderie. But it was more than that. It was a call to arms, our collective resolve condensating into a single moment where we could change our fate, and perhaps even the fate of countless others. As we maneuvered through the debris field, the distant lights of the Alliance fleet flickered like scattered fireflies, a contrast against the cold darkness that had enveloped us for far too long. But a shiver crept up my spine as I remembered the thrilling chaos behind us. The devourers were still out there, lurking in the depths, waiting to seize their opportunity. Vex's fingers danced across the controls. "I'm patching into the fleet's comms. We'll need their support if we intend to mount any semblance of a counter-offensive. Let's hope they're ready to listen," I muttered, casting a sidelong glance at him. "After all this time, it's up to us to make them believe in the cause." As if sensing the weight of my words, Vex's expression hardened, his jaw set. "They'll have to believe. No one else has a stake in this fight but us. They've grown complacent, too caught up in their own fears. It's time we remind them what we're fighting for." With a whir, the comms hummed to life, and a crackling voice resonated through the pod, a brash commander on the other end responding to Vex's frantic signal. "What's your status? We've lost numerous ships to devourer attacks. Whatever you're planning, it better be good." "We've escaped, but not for long," Vex interjected, passion coursing through his voice as he relayed our position and the oncoming threats. "The devourers are regrouping. We need to strike now, while we have the chance." The silence on the other end lingered, the weight of doubt palpable. For a moment I feared they wouldn't heed us. But then, as if sensing the urgency burning between us, the commander's voice broke through, filled with purpose. "All ships ready to engage. We'll follow your lead. Time to show the devourers that we won't go down without a fight." My heart raced, adrenaline surging as the connection snapped off and Vex turned to me, eyes alight with determination. "It's time to finish this. We'll rally the forces, coordinate an immediate strike, and give them the reckoning they've earned, together." I smiled despite the anxiety trembling in my chest. "We'll finish what we started." As I switched our trajectory, we hurtled toward the rendezvous point, the departure from the debris field transforming into a panicked pulse of energy surrounding us. My mission was clear. No longer were we mere survivors in a fractured galaxy. We were the flame that would ignite a revolution. But as we pressed on, my sensors blared with new alerts, sending a wave of dread crashing against my determination. "Vex, incoming devourer ships. They've followed us. There's too many of them, they're not backing down," Vex cried, fingers racing over the controls as the alarm blared above us. "We need to gain altitude. If we can reach their flank, we might just have a chance. I wouldn't allow fear to grip me. Hold on, I'm taking us up." The escape pod jostled dramatically as I punched the throttle, guiding us upwards, an act of defiance amid the turmoil. The devourers poured in behind us like a wrathful tide, their ships gleaming ominously, ready to obliterate any glimmer of resistance. "Watch our six," I shouted as we arced into a tight turn, narrowly dodging a pair of energy bolts that flared dangerously close. "We need to maintain control," Vex called out, adjusting the systems again, fury woven deeply into every word. "We're not stopping now. We must reach the fleet." With an electric surge of energy, we ventured deeper into the storm, blinding flashes illuminating the empty dark surrounding us. We pushed forward as we rallied our courage, an unyielding bond, powered by the stakes pushing us onward. As we drew closer to the fleet's formation, my heart pounded against my ribcage, the smell of impending conflict lingering in the air. a mix of fear and hope swirling in my chest. This was it. This was our chance to turn the tide. But just as the first skirmishes began to break out in the distance, we were struck by a tremor from the flagship of the Devourers, rejoining the fray and launching an aerial assault against the fleet. I felt the air crackle around us. The energy grew thick with anticipation. Vex, I gasped, racing against the chaos as we approached the fleet lines. They are sending the main force against us. Prepare to engage. Powering weapons. His voice rang out with fierce energy, a shared determination igniting fiercely as we veered into the heart of the battle. We exchanged fire with the approaching Devourers, energy beams illuminating the dark expanse as the two forces clashed in a brutal dance. Our escape pod became an extension of our resolve, a beacon of light against the darkness that threatened to swallow us whole. Hit them hard, I shouted, adrenaline rushing through my veins as the flagship loomed closer. Aim for their propulsion systems. If we can disable their transport, we might render their forces ineffective. Got it. Firing now. Vex's voice cut through the chaos, the power pulses releasing waves of energy against the encroaching threat, responding in perfect synchronization. The battle raged as we fought tooth and nail against the tide, one ship at a time while the stakes rose higher. Every laugh, every shared moment between us anchored the depth of our crusade as we pressed onward, heartbeats aligned with the rhythm of our resolve. Then, amid the harsh plasma bursts and explosive flashes of light, a new vision unfolded. A corridor of opportunity, a fleeting gateway through which we could force our way. There, I yelled, veering us away from an incoming blast. Just ahead. We can breach the flagship from its flank. Keep pushing forward. Vex called, fingers determinedly working the controls amid the grit of battle. Do not let them ground you. Adrenaline surged as I followed through, navigating our course between the expanding chaos, heart racing as we accelerated toward the flagship, every piece of me refusing to relent. We would not go down without a fight. The flagship drew closer, swelling into view before me, a monstrous remnant of despair faintly shimmering in the void. I felt a fierce pulse in my heart as I angled our trajectory toward its weak point. Prepare to breach, I called, my palms clammy against the controls. Break through their stripes and follow me in. With a furious energy surge, we blitzed through the opening, a chorus of chaos trailing behind us. Moments stretched thin as the enemy scrambled to redirect their fire, but we slipped through, like flame dancing through shadows. Almost through, steady, Vex shouted, tension electrifying the air. Hold on tight, this will get rough. I plunged the pod deeper into the belly of the beast, navigating sharp turns and indentations with every ounce of precision coursing through me. My heart felt alight with purpose, leading us to the heart of the flagship's command center. Imara now. Vex's voice echoed sharply, the urgency slicing through the air. We can disable their power grid from the lower deck. At that moment, I positioned us with surgical precision, taking in every contour of the hull within the flagship, the shimmering energy pulsating against the dim light within. With one final breath, I punched the thrusters into overdrive, bringing us to a halt within the command bay, firing the outer docking clamps. Prepare to detach, I yelled, my voice vibrating against the electricity cascading through me. Let's terminate their command once and for all. With a definitive thud, we fully breached, and a wash of silent energy enveloped the pod as we unbuckled to move toward the hatch. I'd forged a path. We would reclaim what was lost. The moment we stepped out, the air thickened. The command bay of the flagship sprawled before us in a haunting silence, illuminated by dim lights that flickered desperately overhead. Stick together, I whispered to Vex as we crept through the dimly lit space, weapons drawn, hearts pounding. We'll take them by surprise. Suddenly, shadows shifted beyond the central chamber, a flicker of movement catching my eye. I instinctively raised my weapon, adrenaline surging again through my veins. Get ready. As we advanced, the air crackled with tension, whispers of dread echoing around us. Then, the figures emerged, Devourer soldiers surrounding us, eyes gleaming. Ambush, Vex yelled, and without hesitation we plunged into the fray. We fought in the chaos of the moment. I felt my resolve deepen. We wove together amid the cacophony, a dance of fate ignited with the fire of rebellion. Each bullet fired felt akin to the heartbeat of my spirit, a defiance against the encroaching void. But just as our numbers began to dwindle, a new figure broke through. A massive, brooding figure at the back, commanding the battlefield. Its armor glinted coldly in the dim light, eyes scanning our movements with a lethal intent. The Devourer Commander. I gasped, fury igniting in my veins as it stepped forward, menacing in every sense. "Umara, focus," Vex shouted, remembering the stakes our fight for the universe spilling out before us. "We need to finish this," and so we fought. Chaos erupted as energy surged around us, scattering debris as we flanked the commander, our weapons blazing with resolve. The air buzzed with the pulse of power as we moved, freely melding as one. Banners of rebellion against the shadows. Together, I urged, adrenaline coursing through me like a wildfire. We can't let him claim our future. We surged toward the commander, pouring every ounce of energy into each retaliatory strike, while the darkness shuddered and writhed, seemingly pushing back against our fury. Vex's strikes synchronized flawlessly with mine, and as we pivoted, dodging the onslaught from the Devourers, I could feel the very fabric of our collective defiance igniting around us. With one last gasp of strength, I launched myself forward, disarming the commander in a swift motion, adrenaline amplifying my resolve. A pulse of action in defiance of despair. Enough, the figure roared, frustration echoing. "Will you think you can stop the tide? In not stopping today," I shot back, pushing through as Vex launched around to flank me, determination sewn into the very fabric of our existence. In one synchronized motion, we surged forward, the air crackled with anticipation. We could do this, fear roared in unison, pulsing through each heartbeat shared between us, finally facing the embodiment of our fears. As a final surge of energy coursed through Vex, he struck hard, sending the commander staggering back. Defiance ignited in our souls almost like blaze between stars. "Your reign ends here," Vex yelled, conviction folding over every breath as we poured forth everything into the strike. With blinding light, the commander exploded against the ground, a shower of brilliant energy bursting like a star in dying moments, sweeping across the command chamber with a deafening roar. "We did it," Vex shouted, voice full of triumph. We actually did it, but before we could catch our breath, alarms blared around us, the flagship's structure groaning as the energy cascaded like tendrils through an unraveling knot. "Not yet. We need to get out of here," I shouted, urging him forward. "The ship is coming apart. In no time to waste," Vex replied, his eyes fierce as we sprinted through the command chamber toward an adjacent exit. Having fought hard through the fray, shadows trailing after us, we refused to falter. We charged ahead, ducking through twist after twist between shadows, straining for every moment of escape amid the chaos. As we burst through the nearest exit, the vibrant energy of the flagship began to flicker. Alarms blaring around us while echoes of distant battle rumbled through the compound, signaling our impending evacuation. "There!" Vex exclaimed, pointing toward an emergency corridor. "We can make it!" Together, we pushed through, determination pulsing bright as the alarms wailed in protest behind us. We could feel the flagship's bow shudder, its systems fracturing beneath our push as we hurtled toward the escape hatch. If we could just reach it, we might escape not just with our lives, but our resolve, a chance to reclaim what was lost among a galaxy filled with shadows. And as we neared the escape hatch, the world around us went dark, the very fabric of being shuddered against passionate resolve, trembling toward a greater truth, seeking higher ground. We stumbled into the corridor, the lights flickering as we drew closer, the momentum of our choices pushing us forward into the abyss of light nestled amidst the chaos. "Umara, we can't stop. We keep moving forward," Vex shouted, urgency sparking between us as splinters of light cut through the darkness. I didn't respond with words, but surged forward instead, swift and sure, a consequence of every struggle woven into the stars, forged by the fires of days past. Finally, we burst through the hatch into the open space beyond. The transition from darkness to light, a euphoric jolt, coursing through our veins. But even as the cold light of freedom embraced us, the flagship began to explode with ruthless abandon. A ferocious blaze cutting through the dark. The remnants of despair torn apart amid the void. "Get to the pods," Vex yelled, urgency surging as we skidded toward the nearest escape vessel on the launch pad. With sheer determination, we leapt aboard, scrambling to secure ourselves, anxiety knitting through my chest as the flagship erupted behind us. We sealed the hatch, and amidst the pounding of my heart, we glanced back at the fiery spectacle as the flagship succumbed to the chaos, a tempest of light against the unveiled darkness. And yet, as we soared away from the remnants of conflict, the determination surged through me again, a united front against the shadows that sought to consume our galaxy and a chance to redefine what lay ahead. "Now we regroup," I said, daring to dream amid the chaos. "We push against whatever darkness awaits us, together." Vex nodded, determination rippling through the air as light filled the escape pod. The coordinates aligned with the fleet's codes, and suddenly possibility unfurled before us. A glimmer of hope, ushering us into the unknown depths. We would not fade into the darkness. Instead, we would awaken a legacy forged in the battle to hold the stars, armed with the memories of the countless lives tied into our fates, and the courage borrowed from those who fought that day. We would gather our strength. This was only the beginning. A once lonely crusade had transformed into a flame of hope, poised to redefine the galaxy, sparking flames of defiance alongside us, drawing in allies ready to stand with us against the tide. One by one, break by break, they would arise to reclaim the night. Eventually, as the vibrations of the pod settled around us, we felt the swell of possibility surge, between distant horizons and hidden futures forged in the light. That piece of legacy would connect us to those far beyond reaching. Together, we would transcend the shadows, standing firm against whatever darkness lay ahead. Onward, I whispered resolutely, a smile breaking free within me, to the stars. A little did we know, as we launched once more into the void, the galaxies awaited agreement, for within each turn lay secrets and destinies interwoven, and our story had only just begun. And even against the very fabric of fate, we would thrive. Together, hope had emerged victorious, a new legacy glowing bright, eager to conquer realms unseen, daring to endure the oddities ahead. In that moment, under infinite skies and amid 1,000 visions, we would rise, fearless and free, reborn once again into the hearts of the stars.